do you think you shall marry, Griff? Asked Lady Meredith Drake, as she tossed her fishing line back into the pond. The 14-year-old had just finished placing a fresh worm on her hook. Marry? Griffin Brooks wrinkled his nose. Why would I want to think about that? I'm only 16. Griffin shook his head, pulled his knees to his chest, and rested his arms atop them. He still clutched his fishing pole in his hand. He adored his friend Meredith. She was one of the boys, as far as Griffin was concerned. But she'd begun asking him questions like this more often lately. Far too many probing questions about the future, and things like marriage and seasons and debut balls and the like. Subjects he had little interest in. Griffin scrubbed a hand through his hair as he watched his line bob in the water. He and Mare were sitting on the grassy bank in front of the pond on Meredith's father's property. Meredith and her older brother Ashford were the only children of the Marquis of Trentham. Griffin's own father, the Duke of Southbury, lived an hour's ride away, and while Griffin had an older brother who was 18 and a younger sister who was only 5, he rarely spent time at home. He much preferred to go riding by himself. One day he'd made it all the way to the Drakes' estate, and when he returned home, no one had even noticed he'd been gone. After that, he began making regular visits, and he was here so often these days, he'd become part of the family. At first, Griffin had befriended Ash, but it soon became obvious that precocious little Meredith refused to allow the boys to have all the fun. She accompanied them on all of their excursions and adventures. She was good at all the things they did, after all. It had seemed only natural. Now, Meredith could shoot as well as the 2 16-year-old boys. She could fish, she could fence, and she could handle a horse better than most adult men. The 3 friends were inseparable, and had been for as long as Griffin could remember. And all these years, Griffin thought of Meredith as nothing more than one of his 2 closest friends. What did it matter that she was a girl? Only lately he'd begun to notice that Meredith was a girl. In fact, she was quickly becoming a young woman. A beautiful young woman, with her smoky grey eyes and long dark brown hair. And Griffin was increasingly uncomfortable with the thought that he'd begun to feel quite differently about Meredith. Quite differently, indeed. The truth was, he hadn't answered her question because he already knew precisely who he would marry one day. It was simple, like breathing. Meredith. He would marry Mare. It was the most effortless, obvious decision in the world.